What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up your RVSS2 XLR. So the stands come in this nice case here, and when we open up the case, you'll see we have two XLR cables, so that this way we can mount two active speakers onto the stand and then connect the speakers to our passive mixer. And then we got the stands themselves that can hold our speakers and other accessories if we want. So when you take a look at the stands, you'll see that we have two of these adjustment points here. So we've got the bottom adjustment point that we can use to adjust the legs of our stand. So when we go ahead and loosen that up, we're then able to push down on the base of the stand to spread the legs. We can set them as narrow or as wide as we want. So once we have it set up the way we want it, we can just tighten this knob to lock the legs in place. This second adjustment point up here on the top can be used to adjust the height of the stand. So we can go ahead and loosen that. Once you have it loosened up, you might see that the springs pop up the top of the stand, but that's no need for alarm. And after that, we can pull up on the top of the stand, and here we can adjust the height anywhere from 47 to 79 inches. You'll also notice these holes here along the top of the stand, and this is so we can use the included safety pin to keep our stand from falling if there's too much pressure on it. So once we found a height we like, we can take our safety pin and run it through the bottommost hole here. And as you can see, this keeps the stand from falling through without even tightening the top knob, but for extra security, we're going to tighten this knob right here. So now that we've got the first stand all set up, let's go ahead and set up the second stand following the same exact steps. So now that we've got the stands all set up, let's talk about what type of speakers can go on the stand. So you would want to choose between using powered speakers or passive speakers, and the main difference is the type of mixer you're using these speakers with. For example, if you're using a powered mixer, you want to be using passive speakers, and if you're using a passive mixer, you want to use powered speakers. And because the stands come with two XLR cables, this would be perfect to use with your passive mixer and your powered speakers. So here I have two RPG-12s, which would be perfect for a passive mixer setup for a live gig, practice, etc. So starting with the speaker on this side, I'm just going to go ahead and take my speaker. And if we look here on the bottom, you'll see this knob, which acts as a locking mechanism for when we place the speaker on the stand. So the first thing we're going to want to do is loosen this all the way up, and then we're just going to line up the pole mount on the bottom of our speaker to the pole on the top of the stand. So once we have the speaker on the stand, we're just going to tighten this knob here on the bottom of the speaker to lock it in place with the stand. So now we're just going to do the same exact thing on the next speaker here. Alright, so now we have our speakers all set up to the stands. We even have our passive mixer here. So now let's talk about connecting the speakers to our mixer. Now we're going to need two XLR cables to connect our speakers to the mixer, which again we already have because these stands come with two XLR cables. So I'm going to start with one speaker at a time here. So I'm going to grab one cable. I'm going to plug the male end into the XLR line input here on the back of my first speaker. Then I'm going to plug the other end into the main mix output here on our mixer, and we just want to keep in mind which speaker is the left and which speaker is the right, so we know which one to plug this into. So for example, let's say this right here is our right speaker. I'm going to be plugging the other end of my cable into the right XLR output on the mixer. Next, I'm going to do the same exact thing for the second speaker. So I'm going to take the male end of my cable and plug it into the XLR line input on the back. And the only difference here is that I'm plugging the other end of my cable into the left XLR output on my mixer. So now we can power on our speakers, then power on our mixer, and get ready for our gig or event. So to set up your passive speakers to the stand, you're actually just going to follow the same exact steps. So you can start with one speaker here and line up the pole mount on the bottom of the speaker to the top of the stand. And again, if your speaker has the tightening knob on the back, we do recommend you tighten that to lock it in place to the stand. Then you'll do the exact same thing for the second speaker here. Another difference for this setup is that you may need different kinds of speaker cables to connect your speakers to your mixer. So in this case, our speaker here has a speak-on input and output, so we're going to use speak-on cables to connect the speakers to our mixer. But the same principles apply really. You're just going to take one end of your cable and plug it into the speak-on input on the back of your speakers. Then you'll take the other ends and plug them into the speak-on outputs of your mixer, but again, you just want to keep track of which speaker is going to the left output and which speaker is going to the right output. And then you're all set to power on your powered mixer and get ready for your gig. What's also really cool is that we can set up other speaker stand accessories like our DP mount here that allows us to fit 2 speakers onto the same stand. So to set this up to our speaker stand, we're just going to loosen this knob here on the side of the DP mount. Then we're just going to line up the socket on the bottom of our DP mount to the top of our stand and just slide it in. And then we're going to tighten the knob on the side of the DP mount to lock it in place to the stand. From here we can place 2 speakers on top, so we have more speakers in our setup. There's also other speaker stand accessories like the ACC4, which we can use to hold our laptop on top of our speaker stand. So after we've taken the speakers off of the stands, we can then break them down so we can pack up. So the first thing we'll do is retract the legs of the stand by loosening this knob here on the bottom. After that, we can pull up on the base of the stand, which will bring the legs in. Then we can tighten the knob here on the bottom to keep the legs locked. So now to retract the top of the stand, we can loosen the top knob here. From here, we can pull up on the top of the stand just a little bit so we can take the safety pin out. So now we're going to want to push all the way down on the top of the stand and then tighten the top knob here to keep the top of the stand locked in. Again, we're going to do the exact same thing on our second stand here. So now that we've got the stands all set up, we can then go ahead and pack them into our bag here. What's a really big help is the divider in the middle, so we know that each stand has its own space inside. Each of these spaces also have the Velcro strips inside, which will keep the stands from sliding around inside of the bag. You can also use the Velcro strips to tell you which side of your speaker stand should go inside of the bag. So for example, you have the longer strips here, which can be used for the legs of the stand, and then the shorter strips can be used for the top of the stand. So I'm going to start with one of my stands here and place it into the top space. Again, you can tell that the legs go on this side of the bag because we have the longer Velcro strips here. So I'm going to wrap these Velcro strips around the legs and make them nice and tight to keep them in place. Then with the shorter Velcro on top, I'm going to do the exact same thing for the top of the stand. So then I'm going to take the next stand and place it into the opposite space, and I'm also going to want to face it in the opposite direction so that it fits nice and perfect inside. So I'm going to do the same thing and wrap the long Velcro strips along the legs of the stand, and then wrap the short Velcro around the top of the stand. So this leaves us with enough room to place our XLR cables inside of the bag. So I'm just going to place them right inside here. Now I'm all set to just close up the bag using the zipper. And now we're all ready to head out to our next gig or event, or store the legs for the next time we're using them. So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to set up your RVSS2 XLR speaker stands. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.